Welcome to Poking Holes in Blinders. Here's a sneak peek into this week's episode. We have some really exciting news. We are looking to rebrand from Poking Holes in Blinders to Fall Hard, Think Deep, two stunt guys talking about the meaning of life.
So another thing that's been going on is yesterday I had my first colonoscopy.
That is crazy because a few weeks ago I had my first colonoscopy as well. In our society, age is a protected characteristic.
That's the question that I think is relevant. Not how old are you, it's what can you do?
And now, on with the show. Welcome back to Poking Holes in Blinders. I'm Colin Follenweider.
And with him, as always, me, Brian Hite.
Dr. Brian Hite, you forgot that part. And we have some really exciting news. We are looking to rebrand from Poking Holes in Blinders to Fall Hard, Think Deep, two stunt guys talking about the meaning of life. And Brian, did you want to talk a little bit about why we're doing this change?
Yeah, well, first of all, you said fancy stuff. We're going to rebrand into this whole, all these stuff. We're just going to change the name. That's what's going to happen. We're moving from Poking Holes and Blinders to, we're going to start calling ourselves Fall Hard, Think Deep, two stunt guys talking about the meaning of life. And really, the reason for that isn't complicated. It's just that when we were when we were telling people about the podcast and they'd say, oh, what's it called? And we'd say Poking Holes and Blinders. And this look of confusion would come over people's faces and they'd say, okay, well, what's that about? And then we'd have to explain that to them. And that was fine. And we certainly are hoping to explain Fall Hard, Think Deep to people as well, but maybe in fewer words because it's clearer. It's two stunt guys just talking about what life's all about. That's what we're going to do, just like we were doing in Poking Holes and Blinders. So the intent hasn't changed. The purpose of the podcast is still to explore some of those aspects of life that sometimes people take for granted or just make assumptions about or have very strong beliefs about that prevent them from seeing things from different angles and different perspectives. And we're hoping to challenge some of those beliefs and explore some different angles that people may not have thought may not have thought about before. And that's what we're going to do. So it's just going to happen under a new name. Fall Hard, Think Deep, two stunt guys talking about the meaning of life.
Ditto. Well spoken, Brian. You are a brilliant orator.
I appreciate that, man. But wait, there's more.
There is more. So we'll do a quick breakdown of the new format so you know what to expect from our podcast. We'll start off with just Brian and I just catching up. It's actually why we started this podcast in the first place. We just enjoyed chatting with each other. And that'll lead us to some stories from our stunt experience in film and television. And the topic of these stories are designed to lead us into a broader discussion that affects us in life and everyday situations. And we'll discuss that for a little bit.
And then once we're done with that, we're going to play a little bit. We have a couple little games, a couple little other activity kinds of things, a little back and forth that should be a good time. So that's what you can expect with Fall Hard, Think Deep. And we're looking forward to trying it out, testing it out. And we're looking forward to hearing from you, letting you know that we care about what you think too. So if you can get in touch with us, let us know, I don't know, what you like, what you don't like, what you'd like to see different. We'll listen to it. May not change anything, but we love hearing from you anyway. So that's it, man. What do you think, C?
I think that's great. All right. Are we ready to do this?
Let me get on Do Not Disturb here. I'm getting blown up. And you know what? I feel like I should keep my availability. You know, I've got kids still in the wind, but
yeah, you never know.
I've done pretty much all I can do to make sure they're going to end up somewhere. We may come off of this thing to a fire. I don't know, but I won't know it while we're talking. So I don't know if you're like me, but when that shit happens, I just want to, I'm a take care of it kind of guy. Like if it needs to be taken care of, somebody texts me and it requires me to do something, particularly if it doesn't take that long, I just want to do it. And I got stuck in that too when I was dealing with all the kid stuff and I sat down at the computer and I saw, I got 19 emails. Let me check what those are. Instead of, let me ignore all those emails, just go straight to Colin's last ones and just make sure I'm straight on the thing that we're doing, spend a little time getting ready. I got lost in, all right, pay the internet bill and check this thing and get on the unsubscribe button for this other piece of shit that I'm tired of seeing come into my email. That's what I got lost into. So I'm like, I can do it. It's right here. It's right in front of me. Let me take care of it. Let me just knock it out.
I'm with you on that. Like the unsubscribe thing, I don't like the new marketing technique. I think everyone does it all the emails that you get for subscriptions are just flooding and flooding, and I don't like that that's the new advertising norm. It's like, stop flooding people. Give them a chance to breathe, and when they need it, they'll find it and get out. But clearly, I'm in the minority because that's how all things are going, just flooding whatever your market is.
Yeah, the email marketing works. You remember Tim Urban? We were talking about his book once upon a time. That guy swears by email marketing.
No, it's working, obviously. Obviously, just not a fan. Stop wasting my time.
Now that I know that, dude, I can promise you that you will always be on every email list that I create. I'm putting you on there. You don't have to sign up. Don't even worry about it. I got you.
You're gonna start signing me up for everything. Now
I might just do that. Yep, you pissed me off. That's what's happening. I'm just gonna spend half a day putting Colin on every email list of every organization and business that I can come across.
Oh man.
So another thing that's been going on is yesterday I had my first colonoscopy.
That is crazy because a few weeks ago I had my first colonoscopy as well.
Dude, what the heck, man? Hey, so I don't know, man. I really didn't know what to expect. I got this piece of paper. It was actually double-sided with directions on what I had to do and when I had to do it. I had to buy all this stuff at the drugstore. I had to take the things I couldn't eat. I had to only drink liquids the day before. I was starving. I had what the heck, man? When did this become part of our lives?
It's just that we're getting old, man. We're getting old, and that's the worst part about living, Maybe not the worst part. I guess with age comes wisdom.
I don't feel old. I don't even know what you're talking about. I feel young, brother. Look at me.
Yeah,
I'm
you're
ready to go.
Young and spry.
Nah, well, you look good too, though, brother. So I don't know, man. It's one of those things that it comes with age. You're supposed to get these different medical things. The body starts, doing whatever it does. But I don't feel old, but here we are. We both got colonoscopies. What the heck?
How did it go, by the way? Did you go? did it work out well? Were you okay?
Oh yeah, no, I won. It was it was fantastic. It was a clean colon or large intestine or whatever the heck it is that they look at. No problems, nothing happened, and for the next decade I can avoid that, which is fantastic because I have no desire to do that ever again.
The doctor did tell me that I had excellent bowel prep. That he was happy with, like you said, that sheet of paper. I followed all the rules. I did everything that I was supposed to, and I got a gold star for my bowel prep.
Yeah, how about that for how the content of praise changes as we get older? You know what? Well done with that bowel prep.
Thank you.
That's fantastic. Good job.
This thing of age is kind of a really interesting concept that comes up all the time in our business, in the stunt world. And I want to share a story about a perception of age. And here it goes. Here's my story. So when I was 22, I was doing a live show in Japan, and there were 10 of us performers that came from the United States, and we went over to Japan to do this show called Final Mission. It was a really fun show. Had a bunch of explosions and jet skis and fights, sword fights, gun work. It was real fun. Before the show, we have to warm up, and all of us were backstage. And I was a gymnast, so like I said, I was 22, and I still was pretty soon out of competing, and so I felt like I was in pretty good shape, and I still had all my splits and all my strength. And we were backstage, and this other performer who was 30 was also in great shape, but he was stretching and he was doing his splits still at 30. And my 22-year-old brain said to him, "Wow, that's great. I hope when I'm 30 I can still do my splits." And he just looked at me, and I think he was taken aback. He didn't really have any response, and he just kind of put his head down. And I thought to myself, "Oh, that's kind of a weird response." But then, when I turned 30, and I looked back on that conversation or that thing that I said, I thought, "What a jerk I was, because what did I think was going to happen in 8 years? That I was going to lose everything, that I was going to lose all my flexibility, all my strength. I wouldn't be able to do anything. And then just that perception of age in my 22-year-old brain was so askew and so wrong about the reality of age. In the stunt business, there's this thing like what is too old to double someone? What is too old to continue our career?
Yeah, you know what's funny about that is maybe it's just the age. Maybe 22, we're just completely stupid because I have a story that's I was the exact same age. I was 22 when I moved out to LA. And one of the very first things that I did when I moved to LA is join the Stuntman Softball League. Thank you, George Colucci and Dennis Matalone, for getting me into that. And I was playing on Dennis Matalone's team, and one of the guys on the team was doubling a very well-known actor, and he and I were similar sizes. And I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and name names because the story makes me look stupid and him look great. So, I'm going to go ahead and put it out there. It's Cliff McLaughlin. Cliff McLaughlin is an amazing guy. He is fantastic on every level. Do you know Cliff?
I know Cliff. I know Cliff very well. Yeah. I would say to describe Cliff, he is the best attributes of a cowboy. He is humble. He is super talented. He is so nice and friendly, and he can do basically anything. He is an amazing softball player. He is an amazing roper. He's an amazing stuntman. He's an amazing horse rider. But he will never tell you this because that's the kind of man he is. He is just the best attributes of a cowboy.
Yeah, Cliff is fantastic. And I'm going to go ahead and, after this story, add to that list forgiving and tolerant because both were required. So anyway, so I'm talking to Cliff, and I found out that he doubled Patrick Swayze. And my 22-year-old idiot self walked up to Cliff one day and said, and this is, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed right now as I'm just telling the story. I walked up to Cliff and I said, so, you and I are about the same size. I didn't even know you doubled Patrick Swayze. So, when you get too old to double him, maybe I can come in and double him. I don't even, I mean, I look back on it. Cliff was probably, he was a decade younger than I am now when I told him that. But, at 22, I'm looking up to Cliff at how old he was, which I don't even know how old Cliff was. I'm guessing he was around 40-ish, maybe late 30s, 40. I don't know. He was somewhere in that vicinity. But to me, at 22, again, like you said, it just, that was old. That's what I saw as old. And so I'm so embarrassed. Cliff, if you're listening to this, brother, thank you so much for not punching me in my face. All he did, he just looked at me with this strange look. And I just have to believe that what was going through his head is, all right, this guy's clearly stupid. He's new. He's dumb. He doesn't know anything. I'm gonna give him some grace. I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. And thank God he did, because otherwise I wouldn't have gotten to know Cliff the way I did. We played softball together for a long time. He's fantastic. But I tell that story to just say, yes, as 22-year-olds, we see old in a certain way. And then now, 30 years later, not quite, I guess 28 years later, old looks very different. And so the question really is, what is old? When do we get old? Is there a time when we transition from not old to old? And who gets to decide what that time is? And is that time different from job to job or person to person and situation to situation? It's honestly a really relevant question, because lately we had a lot of discussion. It still is there too, with regard to the presidential elections. We had Joe Biden and Donald Trump running for president. Both, Donald Trump, I believe 78, if I'm not mistaken. Joe Biden was 81 or 82. I mean, is that old? I think so. But I'm 50. I thought 40 was old when I was 22. So I don't know. Is 78 and 82 old? And if so, does that matter? Should that be relevant? And if so, why? What makes it relevant? What things about age should we care about? And is it context specific? There's so many different questions that get brought up around this age thing. And I'd love to hear your opinion on that. Let's let's stick with stunts for now, and then maybe we can move into some other areas. I don't know what makes. Is there such a thing as an old stunt person? And if so, or I guess probably a better way of saying it, is there such a thing as a too old stunt person, a time when a stunt person absolutely should end their career and move on to other things?
Well, I would first like to say in our society, ageism is actually a protected age is a protected characteristic. There is the definition of age discrimination involves treating an applicant or employee less favorably because of his or her age. So, to answer your question, it's like our government actually protects us from having age discrimination put against us. However, the reality is it comes down to output because it like us as stunt people, the the output is what our product is. So if say a stunt coordinator's responsibility is one of the responsibilities as stunt coordinators, I think, is to protect people, as well as we go to the edge and get hit by cars and all that kind of stuff. But it's really important to be able to protect people, and with that protection as a stunt coordinator, you're looking at the possible doubles, the possible people, and does age play into a factor? Is there a limit? I would have to say realistically there is, because I wouldn't want to put someone up in the position that they're going to get injured because of just the physical reality of what age does. Now the other side of that is I'm 48 now, and I still feel like I can do everything that I did in my 30s, or maybe not my 20s, but definitely my 30s. And like if I was and what if I put myself up for something, or what would I limit myself doing because it has to do with the output. Honestly, at this point, I feel like I don't really need to limit much, right? I mean, the only thing that really reminds me of my age every day is my glasses. But besides my glasses, I still feel like I can do everything that I did a decade ago. So I think the big question is that it comes down to output. And if we take it outside of the stunt business, ageism is a huge concern in sports. Like the NFL talks about it all the time, talks about how a running back that's 32 is maybe too old for that. So, how is that? So, I think the answer to your question is I think it does change situation to situation because it has to do with output. Now, talking back about the presidency, we're really talking about energy and mental capacity. And so if someone is still has the energy and the mental capacity make to lead a country, then whatever their age is that a concern if they still have the ability? But how do you have broad strokes saying this person's okay at this age when this person isn't?
Right. Yeah. Now there's some really good points in there. And I think that the focus on output is an important one, to just ask the question, okay, what's necessary? What needs to be done? And are you capable of doing it? And if you are capable of doing it and doing it well and doing it consistently, then it shouldn't matter what age you are. So, yes to that. And I think where some of the confusion comes in is we start thinking about things in terms of groups and averages when we should be thinking about things in terms of individuals. For example, if you were to say, all right, what's the average mental capacity for 80-year-olds versus 30-year-olds? There would be an average there, and it would depend on how you measured mental capacity. But at the end of the day, there's going to be an average there, and it might be higher, might be lower for either one. But neither average, and this is important, neither average tells you anything about any one individual. So whatever that average is, I'm 50. If you were to compare me on any variable, physical, mental, emotional, pick a variable, it doesn't matter, and take the average for 50-year-olds and compare it to the average of 20-year-olds, there might be a statistically significant difference between those two averages. But neither average tells you anything about my particular level of ability in that physical, mental, or emotional realm. So it's really important, particularly from hiring standpoints, that we look at the individual themselves and find out what that person is capable of, and if they are capable of the output that you're talking about. And if they are, then they should be considered right along with everybody else. For example, I was just on a show not that long ago, and for the first time in my career, I was treated as old. The stunt coordinator, the fight coordinator, the different people who were in charge of the scene that I was doing, were all late 20s, maybe early 30s. So about 20 years younger than I am. And when I was 20 years younger, I would look at me and I'd look at me and say, he's old. And that's exactly what happened. So, but it was strange being on the other end of it when I feel the same way you do. I feel like I can still do the vast majority of things that I could do 20 years ago. I can still flip. I can still fall. I can still, do all the things on motorcycles, et cetera, that I could do before. I can do pretty much, I'd say 90 to 95% of the same stuff that I could do 20 years ago, I can do today. But I wasn't given the opportunity. I wasn't looked at or considered from the individual perspective. It was more like I was lumped into the category of, okay, he's 50. 50-year-olds can do these things. So we let 50-year-olds do that while we let the younger people do this. That's what it felt like to me. And I think that's where that mistake comes from, is we start making judgments about individuals based on group norms rather than what those individuals themselves are capable of.
I would agree with you. And I actually had an experience of when I was training into the Batman and Robin stunt show. I was 30, 28 or 30, and we were given different ideas or different concepts of, all right, I want you to put together a fight like this. I want you to put together a fight like this. It was really just like a great team building exercise. Like, you three people put this fight together, and then we would showcase these fights. Well, in one of the scenarios, there was an older person who was supposed to be in the fight, and the director said, "The person's like 50." So I'm 30, and I was going to portray this in our little segment that we put together. I was going to portray the 50-year-old. Now, when I portrayed the 50-year-old, I had a cane and a walker, and I was shaking. And then we did whatever our fight choreography that we came up with. But at the end, the director goes, "Hey, just so you know, 50 is not what you just portrayed. You portrayed like 80 or even 90. 50-year-olds." Then he was around 50, and he was saying, "We still move, we still go, maybe a little bit stiffer, but basically you were way off on your age portrayal." And to get back to what happened to you, it's like when you're 20 or 30 or even like late 30s, it's like our perception of what age is, what 50 is so different from the reality of what 50 is. So now talking about, say, the president, the president, there is physical things that do change with age. That is just what happens. Like I said, I have glasses.
Yeah, and we went to go get a colonoscopy.
We went to get a colonoscopy. So there are physical things, but our perception of what 78 is it accurate? Is it fair? I think you're right. It does come back to talking about the individual. The averages don't actually showcase the individual, but how do you set up a system that treats everyone fairly, but then you're giving special cases for certain individuals who definitely do have the capacity for stunt work at 55, at 60 to be, stunt doubles, and some people don't. So how do you proceed with being able to treat people fairly?
Yeah, it is hard. And from a stunt standpoint, I guess this would probably be the case. I don't know why it wouldn't be for any industry at all. is whoever it is that's hiring the person needs to take the time to really understand what that person's capable of and then make decisions accordingly. So in the stunt world, it comes down to trust. The stunt coordinator is going to hire a person to do a job and then has to trust that that person is capable of doing that job safely and consistently and well every single time. And I think in every other industry, it's the same way. When you are trying to hire somebody for a position, it is a big challenge, and it's nobody's cracked the code yet completely on how do we find the people who are actually really the right people, the good people who can do what we need done and will stay and not just take off whenever. Like, how do we find these people and then keep them? It's a legitimate question of how do we ensure that who we hire is truly able to do what we need done. That's a hard thing, but it is an individual question. And I think too often we gravitate towards stereotypes, which are created from these averages with regard to the variables. So they're each variable, like, like I said, flexibility. And to take your, so flexibility is going to decline as people get older. So it's probable that a 50-year-old will be less flexible than a 20-year-old. However, there are plenty of 50-year-olds, and I'm looking at one of them right now, Colin Follen. In fact, me too. But you're way more flexible than I am. But both of us are more flexible than plenty of 20-year-olds. So you can't know just by age who is going to be the more flexible, the 20-year-old or the 50-year-old. Can't know that. There are averages, but those averages don't tell you anything about the individuals themselves. You have to take the time to look at the individuals themselves and ask those questions. So from the presidential, ideas about, okay, well, should we cut off the ability of people over a certain age to run for president? I mean, my answer would be no, simply because of exactly what we've been saying. We don't know what that person's capabilities are. If at whatever age he or she is, they are capable of doing the job, then they should be allowed to run for the job or to be considered for the job. And if they're not capable, then they shouldn't. I mean, I don't think that age should be a cutoff discriminating factor.
I would agree with you. As you said, it all comes down to the individual. And maybe it's if there's a way to take the perception of age out of the question, as you suggested, then you can get an accurate representation of what the person's abilities are, no matter what the business is, whether it's in the NFL when you have, Tom Brady was like 45, 43 when he retired. It's still one of the best, still producing. Like he obviously still had the abilities, and age wasn't necessarily a question there. But then you have, as you said, running for the president. I would agree that if you put age limits on something, then you're taking away the ability of maybe having a person who is fully capable of doing it not do it. There was a thing that I saw on NPR that was questioned about should there be age limits for the presidency. I do agree with the 35-year-old cutoff. Like, to run for president, you have to be at least 35 years old, because as you and I have in our experiences, we may have the talent, but you just don't have the experience and wisdom. So I do like having the lower age limit. I want to say another thing. My friend Brian, he used to be a stage manager for Broadway tours, like one of the best out there. He ended up moving to LA and changing his career, and he wants to be a second AD or first AD for movies and television. And he was already in his 50s. He got into the DGA program and went through the training. And when he got out, because of his experience with Broadway musicals and running, being the stage manager for all these tours, obviously he had such great knowledge and such great experience and such great wisdom. But however, he was also a victim of ageism because people's perception that when people come out of the DGA, which is the Directors Guild of America, they have a training program to train production assistants and then assistant directors and moving up. Uh, he definitely felt victim to not getting the opportunity because of his age, even though he had the resume. So it comes down to, as you said, trying to see the individual and the capabilities of the individual. And maybe that goes back to my question, like, how do you keep it fair?
Yes, I don't know that I agree with putting an age cap on anything, because I do believe that people should be judged individually based on their ability to perform whatever tasks are necessary to perform. It's interesting that you bring it up from the other way, though. Should there be an age floor where you don't get to do this thing until a certain age? Because I'll tell you what, if you had told my 22-year-old self, hey, you know what, you can't do this until you're 35 because you're not smart enough yet. You don't have the experience, you don't have the wisdom. I'd have told you, you guys are so dumb, man. What are your old asses like? How come you don't think I can get in there and do as well as you could do? Like, I would have had no clue and argued vehemently right to your face about how wrong you were. And yet, now that I look back, I'm like, well, yeah, that would be really stupid if you'd have put any 22-year-old as energetic and as intelligent and as driven as they might be into a position that requires wisdom, which requires experience to obtain. That would just be a horrible idea. So I agree with you. I think that age bottom is a good one to consider. And let me just say this too about the presidential stuff, though, because all the arguments around Joe Biden and should he stay in the race, should he not stay in the race, around the age thing revolved around age mostly. And I think that was the wrong thing to focus on. Now, when it became clear that his mental capacities had been compromised, that he wasn't functioning mentally at the level that one would expect, and I would say, again, require for the president to be able to operate at, that's different. That's part of the job. It's part of the president's job to be able to pay attention to and keep a lot of things in his head all at once, to be able to make really hard decisions based on limited sometimes limited data, sometimes just bombarded with so much data and trying to figure out what's relevant, what's not relevant, and make really hard decisions that affect a lot of people in a lot of ways. That's part of the job. And if your mental capacity is such that you can't do that anymore, if it's been demonstrated, and that's another good question, how do we test? How do we know? But if it's clear that you're not capable of doing that, well, then you don't get to be president. I don't care if you're 60 or if you're 80. So the age, I think, was the wrong focus. These presidents are so old. They're too old. They can't. I think that the age itself is the wrong answer. Now, it's fair to say, too, that Donald Trump has his own mental and cognitive capacity questions that have been and should be addressed, because he goes into word salads, more times than not. A lot, for a lot, I don't know about more times than not, but certainly frequently. And it begs the question, is he mentally capable of what I just said, of getting all of this information, doing a sober, complete, thorough analysis of it very quickly, and being able to make some decisions that will ultimately affect a lot of people and do that well? I don't know, but that's the question that I think is relevant. Not how old are you? It's what can you do? And can you do it well enough to be given and to continue in the job that you're in? So with that, that's age.
That's
so we
age.
talked about it, man.
We talked about
I don't
age.
know. It's just like everything else. It's not the point to find the answer. The point is to talk about it. And I think that there are a lot of ups and downs and ins and outs and nuances and complications that come when we start asking the question, what is old and what's too old, and who shouldn't get a job and who should. But to me, I mean, truly, it comes down to stop looking at the number and start looking at the ability. And if the person can do what you need done, then it doesn't matter the age.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right on. Well, all right. So that's that. That's our topic. We're done with that, but we're not done because we got this question. I'm wondering too. See, what have you been reading lately?
So I just finished listening to, because as you know, I'm not so much of a reader. I'm an audiobooker. It's called The Madhouse at the End of the Earth. And it is about a Belgium exploration vessel that was trying to find the South Pole. And it was called the Belgica. And and it's really a story about human survival in harsh, extreme situations. The ship actually got trapped in the Antarctica pack ice and was trapped there for a whole winter. So the question obviously is, why did they do it? Why did they explore? Why did they knew the situation and try to keep going just to find the South Pole? And I think there is such a insatiable need as humans to find things out, to explore at whatever the cost. And I just love those stories about ruggedness, human invention, human trials and tributes to I kind of lost my thought there.
It was probably that big word you used. Insatiable probably threw you off. I don't know if you ever recovered after that one.
Yeah, did I use it correctly though? Yeah, an insatiable need.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Like what I heard is that that it's a story that grabs you because of its insatiable curiosity and the creativity that these people showed and their perseverance through these different challenges, and that's something that you gravitate toward. Is that fair?
That's yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was trying to say. And as usual, you said it better. I appreciate that. So my question to you is, what have you been reading?
I also have shifted to audiobooks. I still read actual books, and I still not that audiobooks aren't actual books, but I still read physical books and I highlight them, but not as much. I've really gotten into the audiobooks, and the one I'm in now is called How Emotions Are Made. It's by Lisa Feldman Barrett, who also wrote a book called 7.5 Lessons About the Brain. She's a professor at, I believe, Northeastern University. I'm not confident about that, but these books are fantastic. She came up with the constructivist theory of emotion, which challenges some of our assumptions about emotion, which are really interesting. The 7.5 what did I say? 7.5 lessons. I can't read my own writing. 7.5 lessons about the brain is also a book that's really interesting because it challenges some of the assumptions we have about our brain. For example, her research as a neuroscientist comes from the assumption and just grounding foundation that the brain is an organ that's just simply designed to maintain homeostasis, just physical, what even our thinking, even our rationality that we tend to think of as uniquely human is simply a way for our brains to keep our bodies balanced, essentially, to keep us safe and to keep us healthy and to keep the right balances within what's going on. So anyway, that's a really interesting one. But I also recently finished Malcolm Gladwell's David and Goliath, and I can't recommend Malcolm Gladwell enough. That guy, brilliant. He's another one who just he sees stuff and then he just sees it from a completely different angle and questions assumptions and questions the way things have been done for so long. And David Goliath is the whole point of that book is that the story of David Goliath, the way that we tend to use it in our culture, which is David was this underdog and he was this little kid and he went up against this big, huge warrior and he was able to beat the warrior. Well, he breaks down that story a little bit differently. It's not in a unique way. Biblical scholars have been talking about it for a long time. Just the fact that David was what's called a slinger, which is similar to an archer, and it was just part of every army had them, and they were very, very good, and they were very, very accurate. And Goliath was infantry. He was heavy infantry. He came in with a bunch of different weapons. And so it's really not that surprising that given the lumbering slowness of Goliath, that a projectile person as accurate and as good as David was would be able to kill him. I mean, that shouldn't have shocked anybody. So David's not necessarily the underdog that we thought he was. And the point of the book is really some of those things that we think are weaknesses aren't. So David had slowness, or he was, he was smaller. He didn't have all the armor. He didn't have the swords. But and we looked at that as a weakness, as on the surface level of the story. But they weren't weaknesses. That's exactly what allowed him to win. That turned out to be his strengths. The things that we see as weaknesses often are the things that allow us to move forward in the first place. And so he explores that perspective of our weaknesses actually being strengths in some ways in several areas. Education is one of them. I forget all the different areas. That's the first part of the book. And then the second part, he explores how some of the things that we think are actually strengths turn out to be weaknesses. So, for example, giant, strong countries, states, militaries, they get beat a lot of times by smaller, scrappier insurgencies simply because they are so big, because they have so many moving parts. They're not as nimble, they're not as maneuverable. Communication can be a problem, lots of things. So it is a book that questions, what we consider strengths and whether they actually are, and what we consider to be weaknesses and whether they actually are. So again, if you're looking for reads, man, check out Malcolm Gladwell. He's got so many great books, and that's the last one that I've read.
I actually just finished listening to "I Hate the Ivy League" from Malcolm Gladwell too. It's
another
amazing.
really good one. If you're not happy with the American educational system, if you've got kids who are going to school and you're thinking, what in the hell are these schools doing? Yeah, check that one out. Malcolm Gladwell's got so many good things about education, and that a lot of them are housed within that particular book. Yeah, that's a good one.
I think back to the David and Goliath story. It reminded me of a quote from Thich Nhat Hanh, who was a Vietnamese philosopher, and he said, all perceptions are wrong. And it's just our perception on strength, our perceptions on weaknesses, and how, because we never have all the information, that everything we think, as good as it may be, could turn out to be wrong. And so I think that actually ties up like our whole reason for doing the podcast, is to challenge those perceptions so that we can have better understanding and more openness and better understand. I was going to say understanding again, but I already used it. So I was trying to think of another word and I didn't have one. So I just think that, the idea is that we want to challenge certainty. We want to challenge perceptions, so that we can just have a better and more more accurate understanding of the world around us.
Yeah, more thorough. It may not be accurate. I don't know. We might be wrong too, but we can at least explore things from different angles. Thich Nhat Hanh's fantastic. He was actually a Buddhist monk. He died several years ago. I can't remember exactly which year he died. I would put him in the category of philosophy too, though. I mean, just listening to him, he's brilliant. He was incredibly well read. He's written a lot of books too, but I listened to a lot of his talks. His talks are out there for people to listen to. I think from different retreats that people had done, they'd recorded his talks. Just a fantastic guy on all levels. That'd be another one if you're interested in Buddhist philosophy and just an incredibly well-read guy. I mean, he was familiar with neuroscience and with quantum physics, and he would bring those types of Western scientific concepts into his talks around Buddhist concepts as well. He blended both very well. So yeah, brilliant dude, man. Brilliant dude. Highly recommend him as well.
So our next section, just no transition, just jump into it, is I have a couple questions I want to ask you.
Okay.
Getting back to movies and television, what is your favorite stunt or stunt sequence that you have done?
Favorite stunt or stunt sequences I've done? Well, I'll tell you, you won't see it if you watch the movie, but the funnest one for me, Anthony and I talked about it when we did the episode with Anthony Molinari, and it was on a movie called Drive Angry, and we did a double car hit. The car was on fire. And I dove at the car because we were playing crazy people. And I dove at the car to tackle it and slid through the fire, got lit on fire, hit the windshield, went up and over. And then as I was on the windshield, Anthony hit the hood, and then he hit the windshield, went up and over. We were both on fire. That was a really fun sequence. I mean, just figuring out all the moving parts of that. I mean, even just figuring out the moving parts of a burn is a lot, and figuring out a car hit for one person is a lot. But you start putting two people in, both of which are going to be on fire. There were just so many things, and it was a fun sequence to be a part of. Now, say you won't see it in the movie, you'll see Anthony go flying up and over, but I don't know what happened to me. I got cut out, I guess. I don't know. The camera went in the right spot. I'm not sure. It's actually been a long time since I've seen that movie. I'm not sure what that looks like, but I do remember seeing Anthony doing an incredible, exceptional car hit, and I don't remember seeing me at all. So not sure where that went, but it was a lot of fun. What about you? What's your favorite sequence that you've done?
I can tell you in a second, but I noticed you put your glasses on. Are your eyes getting tired? Like, do you need a nap? I want to be conscious of the age.
No, I was going to read some questions for you because you just surprised me. So I was going to come back at you with some, like all shocking style. But, I can't be sneaky with putting on my glasses, I guess.
No, it gives it away. Yeah, so my favorite stunt sequence that I've been a part of, it was in Eagle Eye, and I was doubling Shia LaBeouf, and Stacy Carino was doubling Michelle Monaghan, and Mickey Giacomazzi was doubling Billy Bob Thornton. And we had a chase scene through a DHL shipping plant. In the movie, we were actually in the airport, and then we're getting chased through the airport, and then Billy Bob Thornton's character is trying to catch us, and then we somehow get on the tarmac, and then we get to like a package shipping place in the airport. But it was this DHL shipping plant that we filmed in Pomona, and it was an adult version of Chutes and Ladders. Like, we had to come up with the idea of trying to figure out this chase sequence, and there are conveyor belts and there's slides, and this is where all the packages get sorted. And we had the run of the place, so we could basically say, oh, hey, can we ride that conveyor belt, jump down that slide, and then now we're on that conveyor belt? And they're like, sure. And we did it. So it was, I remember we were running down conveyor belts. We get shot at. We both dive in separate directions. She goes down a slide. I go down a slide. Now we're on separate conveyor belts. And it was just such a fun experience, and realizing, like, this is my job. This is what I'm getting paid for. So that's my favorite sequence. My next question to you is, what is your favorite location and why? Like a film or television took you somewhere, and what's your favorite place and why?
I think my favorite location was Hawaii. I got to go out there to work on Hawaii Five-0 several times. Now, a lot of those times I never even saw the sun, which sounds weird, but except for the day that I landed. So what would happen is I would leave LA at whatever time I did, and I'd fly out to Hawaii, and we'd land. I forget what the time difference was, but there was a big one, and we would land somewhere around, I don't know, 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So there would be a few hours of sun then, but then the call time would be, 5 a.m. or something before the sun came up. And I'd be in a van, and then we'd go to a location. I remember one time it was an airplane hangar, and we were just shooting in this airplane hangar all day, and literally from sun up to sundown. And then I got back in the van after the sun went down, went back to the hotel, went to sleep, and then got up at around, before the sun was up too, to go back to the hotel, or to go back to the airport and fly out. So that was ridiculous. That happened a couple times, but there were another 2 or 3 times that I went out there to work where I did have enough of a little break in between. In fact, there was one time when I did a sequence at the beginning of the week, and I was able to kind of hang out the rest of the week, and then the rest of the sequence was at the end. And I did some scuba diving. I got certified in scuba, actually, while I was out there. I got to dive with some sharks. I got to dive with the big turtles, and it was just a fantastic location. Yeah, and specifically on that show, a location that I'll never forget I say I won't forget it, and then I can't tell you the name of the hotel, but we were on top of this big hotel. It was about, I don't know, 250 feet up, because the stunt was I was doubling a guy, and I was cabled off, but I was standing on the very edge of the hotel, 250 feet up, just looking down to the ground. And it was at sunset. And it was the most beautiful, amazing view that, I mean, just standing on top of this 250-foot building, just on the ledge, it was phenomenal. Favorite locations, Hawaii, and the favorite specific location was on that ledge of that hotel, looking out over all of Waikiki and Oahu. I mean, it was so beautiful. What about you? What's your favorite location you've been on?
That was an amazing story, by the way, that I could see it standing on the edge, sunset. That sounds beautiful. But my favorite location, I've been fortunate to travel kind of around the world to places. Iceland was pretty awesome for Flags of Our Fathers. I've been to Hawaii, I think 4 times, 3 times for work, so that's pretty awesome too. But I got an opportunity to stunt coordinate a show for Brian Smurs called 24 Hours to Live, and we filmed it in Cape Town, South Africa. And that place is so amazing. There is some disparagence between like economic disparagence. That's not even a word, is it?
Some disparity. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes. Uh, there is some economic disparity. We were staying in the marina, and there's like a bunch of 5-star restaurants there. And then also in Cape Town, they have a thing called Khayelitsha, which is a shanty town. But it was pretty westernized. In the marina, there was amazing restaurants. There's also in the city of Cape Town, there's two hiking areas that you can get to pretty quickly. One's called Lion's Head, where it's like a 40-minute hike inside the city. And so you get up in the city and get to see that. And then there's another one called Table Mountain, which is it's an amazing mountainous feature, but it's like the top has been cut off. So you basically hike up 2 hours and then you're on this huge plateau, again, overlooking the city, overlooking the ocean. I went down to Cape Agulhas, which is the southern tip of South Africa, where the Atlantic and the Indian Ocean meet. That was really cool. There was shark cage diving. I also went surfing there, not in the same spot, but the surfing was amazing. There was motocross and sand dunes that we did motocross on the sand dunes. The best trampoline park I've ever been to was there. And so besides just the show and the fun of the show, and then actually working with a bunch of really great South African stunt people, yeah, Cape Town is pretty amazing. Oh, there's a wine area similar to Napa Valley, which is like 30 minutes outside the town. So it's like this town just had so much to offer in the city and the surrounding areas.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic, man. That's no shortage of fun if you got time to do it. I mean, I know on the show like what you described, time is a premium. Not a lot of it, especially when you're coordinating, but glad you got to spend some of it doing all that. That's fantastic.
So I have one more question for you. And I wanted to know what you feel is one of the most influential movies.
Okay. Fair question. Not going to answer it though, because you've hit me with 2 questions already. So I'm coming back at you with a question. So stop being greedy with the questions. I'm going to give you this and then we're going to wrap this up. What is the goofiest stunt you've ever done? Sometimes we get put in some weird costumes and some really strange situations. When you tell the story, people are like, what? Like, what is the goofiest, weirdest, dumbest, just silliest position you've ever found yourself in as a stunt person?
The goofiest? It's crazy. Nothing's coming to mind.
All right. Well, I'm going to tell you mine, and then maybe that'll trigger something for you because I'll never forget this. I was working on a show. I have no idea what the name of the show was, but I was working for Chuck Borden, and it was Mark Schaefer and I were working together on this show. And each of us was doubling an actor. And what the gag was is that for whatever reason, these guys were up on a stage and there's some sort of show happening. I don't know what was going on, but they were up on a stage, like in a high school or something. And somehow or another, they got their penises stuck in a Chinese finger handcuff thing. You know what I'm talking about? Somehow they got their penises. So now they're stuck together with this Chinese finger thing. And and this, again, in the story, what's happening is they're struggling around. They realize they're trying to and they end up getting onto a banister and sliding down the banister by the Chinese finger thing connected to their penises and then hit the ground at the bottom. So there's Mark Schaefer and I sitting on top of this banner. Like we're sitting on this rig that they built to kind of slide down it. And the story is that our penises are connected with this Chinese thing. We're sliding down and hitting the ground. That was the most absurd situation that I think I've ever been in.
That sounds ridiculous. It did remind me of a story, but not as crazy as yours because I've never heard anything like that before. That was, well, man. But my goofy story was when I was on America Horror Stories, and we were up in the mountains of Big Bear, and we're military, and we're searching through this forest at night, and we get attacked by these creatures. And so we try to shoot them. I get taken out, get tackled down by one, and the stunt performer is going to rip out my tongue with his teeth. So after I get taken down, he jumps on top of me, and then they put a prosthetic tongue in my mouth that I have to hold there with my teeth, and then he puts his mouth over my mouth and on this prosthetic tongue. And for the next, I don't know, it felt like 10 minutes until they yelled cut, but he's gripping the tongue with his teeth, I'm gripping the tongue with my teeth, and his face is right here, and he's trying to rip it out, and it's a little stretchy, so he gets some distance here so that you could see the teeth, and I'm like, or see the tongue, and I'm like, and then finally I let go of the tongue with my mouth, and he rips it out, and then spits it to the side, and then I think he probably bites my neck too. I mean, I just get devoured by this creature. But that was one of the goofiest, strangest things. Clearly not as involved as yours, but that's my story.
No, I love that, man. That's nuts. That's awkward, right? When you just sit there with your face in somebody else's face. I mean, you're not kissing the guy for the whole time, but that's weird. You're sitting there. Then did you have conversations? Did you talk while you were waiting on him to call rolling?
A little bit. Like I'm on my back and he's on top of me, and I don't know. His breath was fine. I don't know if he put a mint in or something like that, but yeah.
That's good. No, that's a good story.
That was awesome, Brian. It is so good to get back on this and chat with you and throw around some ideas to broaden our perspective. It's been too long, so I just really, really love just chatting with you. I'm really excited to hear some more of your stunt stories because the business is so fascinating at times of the things that we get to do, like your Chinese penis finger trap story. It's so ridiculous. And I learned something today.
Well, good. Yeah, no, well, that's great. I'm glad you learned something, but I had fun too, man. It has been too long. We took too long a hiatus. I'm glad we're back at it. I always love the discussions with you, and I can't wait to continue these. Hopefully we'll put out these episodes a little more frequently than we did with Poking Holes and Blinders. And remember, we have changed to Fall Hard, Think Deep, two stunt guys discussing the meaning of life. So you'll find this podcast for the next, I don't know how long. We haven't figured it all out yet, under Poking Holes and Blinders. But we will let you know when it officially changes to Fall Hard, Think Deep, when you can go to iTunes, Spotify, whatever your podcast preference is, and subscribe to Fall Hard, Think Deep, two stunt guys discussing the meaning of life.
Brilliant. All right, I'll catch you later, man.
All right, bro. Take care.